click, click. Hello everyone, this is Take from bigheadtaco.com, and I'm coming to you here from my garage. And so it might look a little odd. I'm getting some like amazing or odd shadows depending on how much you like shadows. I'm in my garage to unbox the new Fujifilm X-T2. Now, when Fujifilm sent out these pre-production copies to all the reviewers, we were told, like everybody else I think had them all pre-gaffered and covered up. Now, I asked mine to be uncovered, and because of it they said please be very careful when you leave the house with the X-T2. They wanted it, you know, a lot of leaks are coming out of this camera, so they wanted to make sure that this was kept top secret. So to do so, I thought it'd be best to shoot from a garage. So sorry, I'm not in some sexy, cool coffee shop or some dirty, grimy back alley, which is usually where I prefer to shoot my YouTube videos. But I'm here to do a unboxing of the new X-T2. Now, I was told that this copy is very close to production. In fact, the camera itself is production ready. It is the production camera, but the firmware is not finalized. And so because of that, you know, in terms of the pictures that I'll be taking them after. Perhaps sometimes there actually is a firmware update while reviewers have a pre-production copy. So I'm hoping that it'll be finalized. And as well, I know this for a fact before even opening this, that there will not be a manual, because in the manual it gives all the specs, and that's one of the things that they don't want leaked. And so I was told that the packaging as well is pretty much production ready, so that's why I thought I would do an unboxing. Fujifilm was nice enough not to pre-gaffer mine, so perhaps it's been opened and touched and maybe marked in terms of what serial number copy I have, but other than that, this will be a production copy. So let's start the unboxing. Sometimes I have trouble with these unboxings, as per my last unboxing video I did, but this Fuji's are done pretty good. Looks exactly like the X Pro 2 box. And let's pull this out. So here we go. Has the X there. And as I predicted, usually in this spot here is where they would actually have the manual, and there is absolutely no manual, but some weird product registration thing that I won't register because this isn't mine to keep. But that's there, and ooh la la, this is the new X-T2 here. I'm gonna leave this aside just for a second. All right, so that's it there, untouched, hopefully, and production ready. And in here we just have one little box here. All right, so let's just I'm gonna put this all on the ground here. Let's just look what's inside here. It's gonna be all just sort of the basic stuff, right? You got your standard charger. It's all standard stuff. The regular charger, I'm not a big fan of these cables. I guess these cables have its purpose. If you have it up against, like I like the plug-in right built into here, so it's right up against the wall because it takes up less space. But if you don't have access to your plug right away, it is nice to have. Anyway, so I'm just saying my preference. I don't like the cable, and here is the flash, because like the X-T1, there was no built-in flash, so I don't even use this. I just like using the EF-X20 flash, but for those that need one, here it is here. And you have that premium leather cable strap that Fujifilm gives, which is better than most, and it's not all splashy with like white and red and green letters saying Fujifilm. It's very subtle, so it's nice. Yeah, it's real leather. And you have your battery, which is probably going to be not fully charged. Let's just see if the batteries even change. Oh, look at that. They even have a thing where it says insert in this direction. So I did kind of complain about that before a little bit. But anyways, so here's the battery. It's the same as all the other ones. And move this all aside. All right. Time to unveil the camera, the new X-T2, the moment all of us have been waiting for. Or at least I have. Here we go. So brand new and sealed, although guess they could have, yeah, they could have unsealed it, but I was told this was untouched. All right. Sniff test. Has a nice new smell. Here you go. So the X-T2. Now, one of the problems I had with even the naming of the X-T2 is when they made the X Pro 1, they kind of like set themselves up as like, because we'll call this Pro, they can't be like an X-T2 Pro. I guess they could have said that. Pro. They never went with the Pro designation, but when the original X-T1 came out and the X Pro 1 was already out, the X-T1 was 2 years newer. Everything about it was faster, better, stronger in general, spec-wise and sensor-wise and processor-wise. And so they never put the Pro designation, but it was very clear that the X Pro 1 had a certain aesthetic, sort of a rangefinder aesthetic, and the X Pro 2 continued that style. And people sort of lamented that it didn't have an articulating screen, but there was a certain aesthetic consideration that Fujifilm had, which I totally respect. And the X-T2, we kind of pretty much knew that when this would come out, it would maintain the same form factor as the X-T1. So I'll keep both these up here and as a reference. But so here we go. As I mentioned, I didn't really look too much into seeing what's new or different. Already I can tell it has the same, and this is one of the things I complained about the X-T1 was I hated that shutter button that did not have the threaded shutter. Oh, it's on. The threaded shutter release. It just had this kind of a mushy shutter, and this is pretty much the same as the X Pro 2. So it feels the same. You could put a soft release on here or a harder, like a wood release, sort of to give it a little bit more leverage if you wanted to, which many photographers like. Actually, that feels taller. Actually, it is taller. The X Pro 2 is more flush. This is a little bit higher up than the X Pro 2. And well, mind you, the X Pro 2, everything seems sort of flush and embedded into the top panel, where the X-T2, everything is sort of elevated, which makes sense. It's more, if I can say DSLR-like. It was clear even when the X-T1 came out that they were going after the SLR, the DSLR market. And so this has better grippage. It feels grippier than the X Pro 2. In terms of weight, I should take the lens off here. In terms of weight, they feel very similar, but as you can see, the X-T2 is narrower than X Pro 2, but in terms of height, it's a little bit taller. Overall, it feels more compact, and because it's narrower, it feels smaller. And so in terms of the weight per size, some complaints about the X Pro 2 was, which is an odd complaint, but even some pretty well-respected photographers said it just felt too light. This one feels right. Actually, you know what? I was weighing it without the battery in it, so I'm going to put a battery in here. Battery's probably going to be dead or very. See, I'm still put it in wrong. Here we go. Put it in this way. You match up that with the little orange tabs. Here we go. Put it in the right way. Battery is you can't tell because you got to pick your language first. Yeah, the battery's not very good. I'm gonna just I brought a spare battery with me just in case. This one has the arrows as well. Never noticed it, but it was in white, and now they've gone to brown orange. But I'm still, so I guess it makes sense, right? It kind of matches up there. All right, so here we go. So turn this on. So in terms of weight, yeah, it still feels, I mean, now I have the lens back on, but it still feels about the same. Let me see here. So let's just quickly look. One of the things I did know about was this button. I did have a chance to speak to a few photographers that had the very early pre-production. This is very close to production, as I mentioned. In terms of the body, it's going to be what the production model is going to be, pretty much. It's just a firmware update. So I did know about this thing here. So what it does is it locks the shutter speed in place. So for those that felt that this moved around too easily, which I never thought it did, but if those of you who did, then what you do is, say you're in A mode, you just press that button, and now this won't shift. And I think it's going to be the same for the ISO dial, right? The ISO dial, yeah. So you turn it. Oh, this feels really nice. This feels really nice. So now it's locked in. But the thing is it doesn't lock the bottom. So both sides are locked in, but it doesn't lock the bottom control here, which I found that on the X-T1, this drive mode, I found that it would move all the time. But now it seems like when it's in single shot, the tab is in the front and out of the way, so maybe it will move less. So we'll see in practical use. So this locking mechanism thing is pretty cool. I thought maybe they might do this pull adjust like the X Pro 2, but again, this is sort of a nod to the old film era, and a lot of old film cameras had this, and this is sort of a nostalgia design camera, and so I see why they did it on the X Pro 2, but not on the X-T2. So that makes sense to me. It has the C mode in the X Pro 2, in that it allows for ±5 in exposure compensation, I'm pretty sure. Yes, it allows for ±5. To be honest, I've never used it on the X Pro 2. If I had to go more than 3 stops, all it would do is just shoot manually, but it does have it there for those that want it. The function button is sort of hidden in between these 3, so probably if you do a lot of video, actually, you know what, that's the one thing I want to check out. There were rumors about the video. There we go. 4K. There's 4K on the X-T2. Now let's see here. It does 21x60, that's 4K, 30p and 25p. So there is no 60 frames per second 4K, but there's 30, 25, and for those that like the cinema look, 24p. So I'm actually excited. I will try shooting this in 4K and 24p. So I can already see who this is designed for. It's really DSLR guys. I'm thinking like 5D Canon or the D500 Nikon, and maybe even the new K1, the Pentax K1. For wedding photographers, a lot of times they want to shoot a little bit of B-roll on their DSLR while they're shooting weddings, and 4K is pretty much, you know, most of the newer cameras, I mean, even my iPhone has 4K, so that is the future. The X Pro 2, now these two should have the exact same sensor, the X-Trans 3 and the new EXR Pro processor. In terms of buffer, what's in here, I'm thinking because it says 4K, it might have a slightly higher buffer. Again, I don't have a manual to tell me what's in here, but I'm assuming it might have a slightly higher one because it has 4K. But because the X Pro 2 has the same processor and the same sensor, a lot of us already knew this already was 4K capable, but Fujifilm decided to not implement this in. I heard from someone that it was mentioned by Billy that of one of the Fuji guys, that there was no way currently for this to run 4K because of the heat issue. I think that could be resolved by just allowing for shorter 4K video bursts, so maybe a minimum, like maximum of 10 minutes, or they'll have to rework the algorithm of the 4K video so that it will use up less processing power. So I'm still hopeful that the X Pro 2 will have 4K, but if not the end of the world. I don't even shoot 4K at this time for YouTube anyways. I stick to 1080p. So, but this is 4K capable, which is great. So I'm happy about that. In terms of button feel, my biggest problem I had about the X-T1 is that because of the weather sealing, it had a horrible button feel. And in fact, this rear dial and the front dial was not push button, and the X-T10, which was not weather sealed, had it. And so other than the weather sealing, which to me wasn't a big deal, I prefer the X-T10 because it had a better button feel and it had extra button features of the front and rear. So this now, like the X Pro 2, which is weather sealed, and when I first got it, I was not aware that it was weather sealed because the button feel was so good compared to the X-T1. I was thinking this can't be weather sealed, and because it had the front and rear buttons, the new X-T2, now the front and rear control dials are also push in and customizable. So again, more control features, so that is fantastic. Now I heard rumor about this articulating screen that it did something weird, and I am seeing right now it's okay. So it articulates like normal. You can look straight down like this or angled up this way, and it has a funny thing on the side here. Here we go. So it does this weird zigzag sort of thing here. It's not a fully articulating, so it would have been nice if they went sideways, which a lot of people I think would want. This doesn't go sideways. I get it. Okay, so it seems unusual. Now the only way I can see this being useful is if you tend to shoot a lot of vertical and you want to shoot down low so you can look down, then this makes sense. Does that make sense? So you're shooting down low, or if you're shooting vertical and you're gonna shoot up high like that, so like over a fence perhaps. So that's the way this is designed. If you're gonna be shooting video though, now articulating and facing forward is great for like selfie, vlogging, YouTubing type video. But if you are doing a wedding, you know what, like the GH4 Panasonic and the Canon, does the 5D Mark III go out sideways, out and sideways? I don't know. But I don't know the 70D and the 80D does with Canon. But it would have been nice if it could, but I guess this is better than nothing, that it can go this way. We'll see. We'll see as people start shooting with it, if they can find interesting ways, like around corners perhaps, like sideways like this, maybe. But okay, look, it's there, right? It's there for those that want it and want to experiment with it. Let's see here. The button placement of the autofocus lock and the exposure lock, John Lehman and myself, we talked about it. We preferred that this button here, or even if you can convert this into autofocus lock or somewhere closer, it just seemed like it was kind of a reach, like it just wasn't in the right spot. So you can't switch this on the X Pro 2. The X-T2, now I'm gonna have to dig into the menus, which I won't do. It's more logical where it's placed. It's right by your thumb. I would still, if I can swap it, I would make this an autofocus lock, because that's probably a feature that more people will shoot at in terms of, like, you leave this on manual, right? So it's manual focus, and then when you press the autofocus lock, it autofocuses for you. So that's probably a better way in terms of the feature wise. So we'll see. I'm sure it's swappable. Like the X Pro 2 now, it has a joystick. So let's just see in terms of focusing zones. Okay, no memory card. Oh, speaking of memory card, let's see here. Yeah, so what they did is they redid, like the X Pro 2, it's a dual card slot, 1 and 2, and it's probably going to behave exactly like the X Pro 2. You can either make it completely separate, you can have it where one does RAW, one will record JPEG, or it would go fluid from one to the other. So once card 1 slot runs out of space, it jumps into card 2. So very well done, and the door even feels better than the X-T2. The ceiling feels better. And then on the left side, you look at all the connections. So let's just compare. Wow, it looks like HDMI, and it has USB. It just looks bigger. It has a bigger USB out, and it might be because of video streaming. And look at that, even it has the, I don't want to call it full size, because a full size plug to me is either XLR or 1/4 inch, but this has an 1/8 inch jack. Now Fuji, for the longest time, like in the X Pro 2, had that funny 2.5 mil jack that would be either a remote or a microphone, and in camera you'd have to decide. They've decided to separate this with the X-T2, so you have a dedicated remote controller and a 1/8 inch. Now it would have been nice, it says mic and it says remote. It would have been nice if you could have converted that remote as well as a monitoring headphone and the microphone jack. Maybe you can monitor through the USB connector, perhaps, maybe. But anyways, proper mics. Now you can get a proper, like a Rode shotgun microphone, or using a wireless system and just go plug it straight in, 1/8 inch, which is pretty standard now on a lot of cameras that have decent video. So I'm very happy. The X-T1 had a weird rubbery thing on the side, and this is a proper door that's sealed. They still have this weird rubber gasket thing for the vertical control grip, which was not ready at this time, so maybe I'll test that. I'm looking at the tripod collar here. It looks like it's centered, which is great. Most pro cameras, X Pro 2 has it. You do want that centered for a lot of different reasons. One of them even being for if you're stitching images and you're rotating across this way. As well, when you put the plate for the for tripod, you can still access your battery, which is great. But now that the card slot's on the side now, that's even greater or even better. So yeah, wow, I'm actually, and the viewfinder, that's another thing. The cup, the viewfinder cup, so you compare it with the X Pro 2. Now this is where I think the biggest, maybe not the biggest, but one of the big feature differences is the X Pro 2 has a hybrid viewfinder. Some don't care for it, some just love it. And because of it, you know, it could only be a certain size. I like it, same as what's on the X100 series. But this one has always had a very fast refresh rate EVF. And I'm looking at this now, and it's really hard to tell because I am in bright daylight. But I'm just, you know what? I should have brought another lens with me here. But you know what? It's definitely bigger when you're looking through the X-T2. Yeah, wow, it's the EVF is, and even the cup, it feels nice. I hope this doesn't collect dust too easily. And but yeah, wow, this EVF is fantastic. It is fantastic. And another thing I was going to look at is the AF control. It looks very, okay, I'm going to just turn on the X Pro 2, even though there's no lens. Press the button here. I'm looking at it. It looks like there are the same amount of focus points. I could be wrong. There might be a different mode, but in terms of the amount of space, like how close to the edge of the frame, like I don't care if within this space of your frame that there's 90 points or 900 points. To me, that's just more increments of focus points. I'm used to like a single point, and even 3 points to me seems like a luxury. I stay in center most of the time. So in terms of focus points, it looks the same. But again, we'll have to test that because it's the same processor and the same sensor, but the firmware obviously that will be running it will be different. It will probably behave a little bit differently, especially maybe now with the 4K video. They may have upped a few of the processing power. They may have even overclocked it or whatever the technical term is for that. So I think I've pretty much gone over all the main features that I can tell looking at it visibly and without having a spec sheet. I will do a more concise review. This is just an unboxing and a first impression. So my first impressions is it's great. It looks fantastic with the 35F2. Both is weather sealed, but so is the X Pro 2. And what I did do is I did ask Fujifilm, so I'm gonna put this back on here. So, you know, I thought the obvious comparison would be X Pro 2 versus X-T2. Two different markets, rangefinder, style. This is the flagship, but I also feel that this is also going to be a flagship for a different market, which is probably those that are DSLR. There's been a lot of recent new Fujifilm photographers that most of them came from Canon or Nikon, and most of them shot with DSLRs, and a lot of them shot sports, weddings, commercial photography, and they moved over to the Fujifilm film system, but they wanted more of a pro body, and this is really what Fujifilm has come up with. I think this is probably the lens that a lot of wedding photographers and event photographers will match up to the X-T2. So, and this is a 16-55, the XF. Let's get the official name here, the 16-55 f2.8 RLMWR. So this is the weather seal. So I mean, if you look at this, I mean, that looks humongous compared to looking at the X Pro 2. But again, you're looking at a different market, different type of photographer. I still feel that I spoke to a few other photographers that I know either already have this or will be having this. They're pretty much sold on the X Pro 2, and these are guys coming from the X-T1. And so they're pretty sold on this. We'll see how well this does in the hands of other photographers. Maybe that's what I'll do. I will allow other photographers, especially maybe non Fuji photographers to play with both of these with similar lenses and see which they prefer. But man alive, the EVF on this is fantastic. It's a very nice EVF, so I can't wait. So again, thank you Fujifilm Canada. Thank you audience for watching. Sorry again that I'm in my garage. How's the shadow doing? Can you see it shifting slowly? It's almost noon, high noon, so it's time to eat lunch. Big Head Taco is very hungry. So thanks for watching and happy shooting. Click, 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 click. That's fast, isn't it?